The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the Eagle Eye Podcast brought to you by Car Shop. Once certified used cars reconditioned like new. That's Car Shop, formerly Car Sense. Rube, this is going to be a fun one. We just wanted to kind of set it up a little bit. We're doing a mock draft today.
We're doing a mock draft with some friends of ours. We'll have Barrett, Brooks, and Ray Didinger joining us. And we split up the 32 first-round picks into 8 groups. So we each have 8 picks going 1, 5, 9, 13 to 6, 10, et cetera. And I don't know how who picked the order.
It was random. We picked a random order.
Yeah. I don't really believe that, but it's going to be interesting. It's been a lot of fun preparing for it and getting ready for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be fun, and Denny Pommells will act as our host for this. We just wanted to kind of set this up for you. We hope you like it. If you don't, we don't care either, because this is an extra podcast. We're not taking away any of the other ones. It's kind of a bonus for you guys, and we hope you have fun, and we hope you enjoy it. Let's send it to Danny now.
It is time to figure out who is who and what is what here with this NFL mock draft. We have 4 football experts here ready to chime in with their opinions. And Ray Didinger, you were on the clock first. The Jacksonville Jaguars, hoping that they will get an impact player to affect their 1-15 season last year. A lot of people think the top of the draft, maybe the first 2 picks, a foregone conclusion. What do you think Jacksonville will do with number 1, Ray?
Yeah, I think it's the worst kept secret in all of football. And it's been for several months now. Sometimes people put out a lot of disinformation, just trying to throw people off the scent, but not this time. I mean, I think Jacksonville Jaguars really are all in on Trevor Lawrence. And so I think he's going to be the slam dunk first pick to get this thing started.
Gentlemen, thoughts on that?
Yeah, right.
No question.
I love that they haven't even tried to hide it. I respect that in a way. We're not playing the NFL's games. Like, this is who we're going to take. We're going to take him. We don't care what anyone thinks. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. After the Jets won that second game, everybody in the country, everybody in the world knew that they were going to go with that pick after that. So, yeah, and that's exactly where it's going.
Speaking of the New York Jets, 2-14, they finished their season. It is you, Dave Zangaro, that is on the clock now as the Jets have the 2nd overall selection. Is this a foregone conclusion to you?
Yeah, I mean, if Trevor Lawrence at 1 is the worst kept secret, this is the 2nd worst kept secret. I think it's pretty clear. The Jets, once they traded Sam Darnold, they were going quarterback, and all indications are this is Zach Wilson from BYU. That's my pick at number 2. And I guess they have options. I mean, for a long time, we thought Justin Fields was the 2nd best quarterback in this draft, but I think it's fair to say that Zach Wilson's going to be the pick at number 2.
What do you guys think about that? 2 quarterbacks off the board. We'll see if we'll make it a trifecta coming up here, but first things first, the Jets, we have no more Sam Darnold there. So
yeah, they had to go quarterback, and just from everybody's analysis and watching what he did this year, I mean, it's a safe pick. I think that he's, as far as him being a franchise quarterback, he'll be given an opportunity. But yeah, I mean, they were going in that direction. Yeah, Wilson's pretty good.
All right, we are leaving the AFC and heading to the NFC, and that is where the 49ers make the 3rd overall selection. And Barrett, you are on the clock. Will it be a trifecta of quarterbacks off the top in your eyes?
Yes, it will be a trifecta. But if you look at, John Lynch, and he kind of threw a bone out there for us saying that Matt Jones was the guy that, he likes a lot. He could fit in the offense with him. But, if I'm in my evaluation of watching film, I really think that Fields, from Ohio State is probably the 3rd best quarterback, if not the 2nd best quarterback in this draft. But, since Lynch did say that he likes Jones, from Alabama, quarterback from Alabama. I just got to go by what he says, but I'm gonna say that Fields is definitely the 2nd best quarterback as far as him being his size, his arm strength, his build. He's a drop back quarterback as opposed to running around. Everybody thinks he's because he's fast. He is. I think he's the second best quarterback, even though he's not going to be picked at the third pick. But Matt Jones is going to be with the 49ers at this point.
Well, if Mac Jones and Justin Fields kind of both check the boxes, why do you think it will be Fields? Do you agree with Barrett, Dave?
No, he's
well,
not.
I agree with him about the player evaluation. I think Fields is a really good player, but all indications are Mac Jones, and he seems to fit what Shanahan wants in that offense, and that matters a lot. Now, I don't know if they needed to trade up to 3 to get him. I mean, I think that was a gutsy move, but if they evaluate and they think he's the best option for them, then I think you do whatever you have to get the pick. I don't like the value, but I kind of agree with Barrett that he's probably going to be the pick at 3.
To me, this one came really out of nowhere. I mean, Mac Jones to me was, in most people's reckoning, a few months ago, was a second-round pick. And now all of a sudden, without playing a game, but just having a good pro day, he's jumped up to the point where people think he's going to be the number 3 overall. I think it's a real stretch. But the one thing we can be sure of is that the 49ers made this move up with the idea that they're going to go get a quarterback, and they have somebody in mind. I agree with everybody else. I think Mac Jones is going to be way overdrafted at 3, but I think he's probably going to be the guy.
I think Trey Lance is going to be better than both of them, but he's also a guy that probably needs a year, maybe a couple years before he's ready to play. And a lot of teams aren't willing to do that. They want a guy to come in if you're taking him that high, come in and play now. So we'll know in a couple of years. But when all's said and done, I think Trey Lance has a chance to be better than both those guys.
Well, that is a great segue into pick number 4, Rube, because you have that pick as the Atlanta Falcons, and Trey Lance is on the board. Will it be 4 quarterbacks in a row in your eyes?
Yeah, this is the most interesting pick in the draft to me, is what the Falcons will do at number 4, because they could take a quarterback and Trey Lance. It makes sense. You take him. Matt Ryan's still under contract. They can't do anything with him for at least 2 years. He's still playing at a high level. It would give Trey Lance an opportunity to learn and grow. And, he hasn't played that much football. If you're the Falcons and you don't want a quarterback, you trade that pick, or you do what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to take Kyle Pitts there. I just think the opportunity to get a Kyle Pitts is too much. I think he's a generational talent. What he can do, the places he can line up, the weapon he is, you can get. If you're the Falcons, you can't afford to have a quarterback sitting for a couple of years. And I would be tempted, certainly, to take one there, but I think they're going to take Kyle Pitts. That's what I'm going to do. You give Matt Ryan, who's still playing at a really high level, had one of his best years last year. So we've seen that quarterbacks can play at a high level, for a long time. You get the guy for 5 years, you send him for 2, I don't think there's great value in that. So I'm going Kyle Pitts, first non-quarterback off the board. I think he's going to be the best skill player out of this draft, and I think the Falcons are going to be glad to have him.
Right, Archbishop Wood off the board. Probably the biggest wild card as far as where he might go here in the early part of the draft. You guys agree with Rube? Do you see them making that selection?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be an unbelievable offense. You have him being able to stretch the field, control the middle of that the defense, and the fact you have Julio Jones still there. They have 2 other pretty good receivers there. So, I mean, that just helped Ryan open up that offense more. And at this point, their defense is okay, but now they'll have an offense probably can score more than probably any offense in the league now with the acquisition of Kyle Pitts.
I think this could happen. I think that the first 3 picks to me are pretty easy. I think it's going quarterback. I think here is where things get interesting, where you could get a quarterback. You could get Atlanta. Well, Atlanta's phone will be ringing. There'll be people that are probably going to want to jump into 4 to get whatever quarterbacks left. The teams are still looking for quarterbacks, and there are those. There's a lot that's going to happen right around here. But I agree with what Rube's thinking. If you got Matt Ryan, who's still got a lot of good football left in him, and you give him an offense where he's going to have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts. That's pretty dangerous offense right there. And if this is the way it goes down, and Pitts is the number 4 pick, which I think is real possible, it'll be the highest a tight end has ever been drafted in the NFL draft. I mean, right now the highest a tight end has gone previous was 5th. Riley Odoms went to Denver, 5 and 72. And then before that, Mike Ditka. Now we're really going back in time, but Mike Ditka, when he came out of Pitt, was the number 5 pick going to the Chicago Bears. But if Pitts really goes at 4, which is real possible, it'll be the highest a tight end has ever been picked in the NFL draft. But it kind of reflects the new role of the tight end in the NFL. The league is going this way.
Ray, let's stay with you. The Bengals pick at number 5 as we head back to the AFC. Do you see this as a reunion moment, as many people are predicting, between a quarterback and a receiver?
Could be. I know that Joe Burrow has talked about that he wouldn't mind being reunited with Lamar Chase, and that makes some sense. But the other thing that I think makes more sense is getting some offensive line help, because I think Burrow's a real good talent. I think he's a kid that could have a great career in the NFL, but you got to protect him. And we saw that when Cincinnati came in to play the Eagles last year. I mean, the offensive line play was just awful, and you saw the beating that Burrow was taking. And I remember saying that day, either Rube or Dave or somebody, or it might have been Barrett on the set, I said, I really like Joe Burrow, but he's not going to make it through the season with the hits that he's taken, and he did. So if they're going to try and maximize the career of Joe Burrow, it has to start with protecting him. So I do think they're going to go offensive line here. I think they're going to go offensive line, and I'll go Penei Sewell. I mean, he seems to have been the guy that's been linked to the most, and I do think he's probably the best of the offensive linemen. There's some good tackles in this draft. I think offensive tackle is actually one of the better positions, one of the deeper positions, but I still think Sewell's the best, so I'm going to send him to Cincinnati.
Dave, you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's really 2 ways to look at it. I think it's one of 2 players there at 5. It's either Sewell or it's Jamar Chase. And it's funny that Joe Burrow's kind of pushed for Chase, because I kind of agree with Ray that he could probably use protection a little more than another weapon. He could certainly use a weapon, but you can't get the butt of the weapon if you're on the seat of your pants. So that makes the most sense. That would be, I think, the soundest pick they could make.
Ray, we see Sewell going to the Bengals. Now, Dave, I'm curious, with the Dolphins pick here, as the AFC kinds of rules the day at number 6, what do you see them doing here?
See, this is interesting, and this was one of the picks where I didn't have to think too much. I'd let Ray pick his guy at 5, and whichever one he didn't pick, I'm taking. And this is, if you're the Eagles and you're an Eagles fan and you're watching this, it's going to hurt a little bit, because I'm taking Jamar Chase at number 6. He's, to me, clearly the best receiver in this class. And, I think we forget how good he was a couple years ago. He didn't play in 2020, but he was by far the best receiver on that LSU team with Justin Jefferson, who ended up having a great rookie year. And it doesn't necessarily mean Chase will come in and be a Pro Bowler, but there's no reason to think he won't. I mean, he's that talented, and it does make you question the Eagles trade back from 6 to 12 if they could have had Jamar Chase. And I think it's a very realistic possibility that he would have been there for them at 6, and that hurts.
Yeah, I think that there's always going to be a spotlight on that 6th pick, because that's the pick the Eagles originally had. And if there's a all-time great skill player taken there, I mean, this is a franchise that has, throughout its history, going back to, some pretty great players. I mean, they've bypassed them in the draft, and certainly recently they've done that. And if Jamar Chase goes at 6 and ends up being the player that I think he will be, I think he can be, the Eagles better. All I know is they better nail 12 and 37, or they're just going to get hammered, and rightfully so, because you're not going to get the player at 12 that you're going to get. You might get a really good player, but you're not going to get the player at 12 that you can get at 6. And we'll see who they end up getting at 12. But I agree. I'm still not in love with that trade. especially considering who the general manager is. So I think it will be Ja'Marr Chase there, and I think the Eagles just may live to regret that.
I see you laughing at Rube's point, Barrett.
Absolutely. I mean, it's number 6. He's a big fish in a big pond. And Ja'Marr Chase is no doubt the best receiver in this draft. Talking about a guy that ran a 4.3 40, big, strong, definitely the better of the wide receivers on that national championship team. And Justin Jefferson came in and lit it up as a rookie. So you can't help but put 2 and 2 together and say he's going to have an even better year than Ja'Marr Chase. Than Jefferson has. So yeah, we're definitely gonna be looking at his career kind of like we think of Brandon Graham's career, and thinking that Earl Thomas, we could have had Earl Thomas instead of him, but it worked out for us in the long run. But it's one of those things where yes, Chase is definitely a generational talent, and I think that he will come in and be an instant impact in that offense for that Miami team.
Moving on to number 7, Barrett. What do you see the Lions doing with their pick?
Well, they just made the huge trade. They got Jared Goff, and he's going to need somebody to throw to. I mean, 2 of his 2 number 1 and number 2 receivers gone, so they have to go as a receiver. And if you look at the 3 wide receivers that everybody talked about were the 2 kids from Alabama, Jaylen Waddle and Devontae Smith. With Chase being off the board, you had to go with one of those guys. And I just think just with the speed that Waddle has, you got to go with him. Yes, Devontae Smith won the Heisman, but I mean, I don't know if his numbers would have been as high as they were if Waddle was still in the offense and he was, healthy enough. He would take a large portion of those touchdowns and receiving yards from him. So I'm gonna go with Jaylen Waddle simply because Holmes, the GM, has to go with another guy to replace the 2 that he let go.
Wide receiver under 6 feet. Do you feel like that's the type of player that can make an instant impact in today's NFL?
Well, they've shown that speed kills, and sometimes a guy that's been that small and played in the SEC, he understands what it is to get off the line. So he'll be able to get off the line because he's played against NFL talent at the college level. He understands his speed is his biggest assets, and his route running ability put him as one of the upper echelons in this draft as a wide receiver. So that's why I'm going with since he's short, but he still has the potential of being great because of his speed.
I just love the fact that you put him to a dome team. That's just going to be fun to watch him up there. I mean, he's going to fly up there. It's tough to project how he does, but I get why a lot of evaluators have him above Smith because that pure speed and playmaking ability, it's rare. And the Tyreek Hill comparisons come up. That's probably unfair to compare anyone to Tyreek Hill, but I get it. I mean, you see that game-breaking ability, and you think if you have even close to that with Jaylen Waddle, then he's worth that pick. I agree.
Rube, the Panthers need a few positions to have a few positions to address. What do you see them doing with the 8th selection?
Well, I was going to take Waddle there. I'm going to need my full 5 minutes to get this pick together. Now, to me, it comes down to, you have his teammate still there.
Sure.
I think I think we're going to start the run on cornerbacks here because, they do have some functional receivers. They only have one really decent cornerback in Dante Jackson. I think Patrick Surtain, the second here at number 8, I'm going to start the run on corners. They got the quarterback. I think they can start focusing on defense at number 8. And to me, it comes down to one of those 3 corners, Jaycee Horn, Patrick Surtain, the second, and Caleb Farley. I think all 3 have a chance to be very good. I think they're all going to go in this next little stretch of our draft here, but I think Surtain's the best one of the bunch. And to get him at 8, I think is a great pick for the Panthers. So I'm going to go Patrick Surtain, cornerback, Alabama, keep the Alabama thing going.
Ray, do you think a run on corners is what's coming here with the 9th selection and the Broncos?
I think that this is probably right around the spot where people are going to start thinking that. Actually, corner is, in my view, I think corner is one of the better positions in this draft. I think there's good talent and there's good depth here. You could have a team that if there's a player who's sitting on the board that they may have a needed corner, but there's somebody sitting on the board that all of a sudden, geez, I didn't think he was going to be there. you might go there and trust the fact that, you know what, I'll come back in the next round and trust there's going to be a pretty good corner still sitting there. You can't say that at every position. This draft is deep in some areas, shallow in others, but corner is one where there's pretty good depth. But to me, I mean, that makes some sense. I mean, Surtain he's really a good player. I mean, he's in a draft where there are a lot of good corners. This guy is just rock solid. I mean, there's nothing you can point to that's a problem. He's got the size. He's strong. He's played in a really good system, and he's practiced every day against elite receivers for the last 3 years. I mean, Ruggs and Judy before that, and he's got Waddle and Smith now. He's been going up against those guys every day in practice and then playing the SEC on Saturday. So this guy's battle tested, and I think he can make plus his father. I mean, he grew up around the game with his dad, who was a good player in his own right. So, you know, you always think about that transition. How's a guy transition from college to the next level? And I think Surtain is in a position where, you know, I think that he'll transition pretty smoothly. So to me, I think it makes sense. I think Carolina is a good fit for him.
I love that player. And I have the Cowboys pick in a few, and that crushes me for them because that would have been a good spot for him.
The only reason I did it.
Thanks.
Well, Ray, what do you think the Broncos do at number 9 as they try to bounce back and make a push toward the postseason?
I actually, when I was doing my pre-mock draft, I had Surtain going here because yes. I know the defensive coach. You got Vic Fangio is the head coach. And he's a defensive coach, and their secondary play last year was really poor. And so I kind of thought that Surtain was there. That would be an easy pick for Fangio. And you snatched him right out from under me there, Rube. You know what? I
like seeing Ray flustered. This is great.
I'm just going to kind of go off on my own here, and say, if I'm the Broncos, I'm surprised that Justin Fields is still there, I'm going to take Justin Fields here because I don't think they're settled at quarterback at all. They shouldn't be, and if they have a chance, I think they would be pleasantly surprised to see Fields still available. So I'm going to send Justin Fields to Denver right now.
So does anyone else have Fields as the best player on their board at this point?
Yes, no question.
Okay.
I think he is. I mean, just what he brings to the table. Like I said, I had him rated as the number 2 quarterback in this draft just from his physical standpoint. I know he did get some rap from a couple of guys talking about his work ethic, him being the first one in, the last one in, the first one out. But I think that, he's at Ohio State. He is a good player. He's going to be very feasible and gifted player for this Bronco team. That's a good pick.
Dave, you said that the Surtain selection was ruffling your feathers a little bit, and here you are as the Cowboys picking at number 10. What do you think they do if they felt their feathers had been ruffled? What would they do with this selection?
Yeah, they have some options. I mean, Surtain was one. They could use a cornerback. They have Trayvon Diggs on one side, so let's get another one for the other side. That's where my mind goes first. But offensive line makes sense too. You have Rashawn Slater still on the board. That would fit. I mean, they certainly need some more depth there. Tyron Smith's getting older, but I'm going back to corner. I'm going to take Jaycee Horn out of South Carolina. I think he's a good player. He's the second best right now corner in this draft. And you can talk about Caleb Farley, but there's reasons to kind of worry about him. So I'm going to go Jaycee Horn. I don't think he's quite as pro ready right now as Surtain, but I think he can be very good very soon. So I like that pick for them. And with so many good receivers in the division, maybe outside Philadelphia, getting a cornerback makes sense there.
And you guys are killing
Barrett,
me.
you like that pick?
You're killing me, man, because he's probably my number two cornerback in this draft. Jaycee Horn, he's a guy that can come in and facilitate things very, very early and be that guy very, very early for them. He's going to lock down, and like you said, with the way this division's going, with the Giants have picked up some good receivers, you're going to need some cornerbacks to cover.
Barrett, the Giants in the NFC East are trying to climb back to the mountaintop here. What do you see them doing here with this selection at number 11?
Well, it seems though it's going into a defensive draft now, and I like Michael Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. but I'm not going to go
You
that
like him a
direction.
lot. You like him a lot, Barrett.
I love him. I love him. But I don't think the Giants go in that direction. I think they're going to want some pass rush, and they're going to go with unique kid out of Miami, started his career out of UCLA. I think they're going to go with Jaylen Phillips. Now, this kid, he's rough, but we're talking about his ceiling is so high that you can't help but invest in a guy like him. So I'm going to go Jaylen Phillips, defensive end from Miami. He can become a very good player. As soon as he learns how to get the pass rushing moves at the NFL level, he's going to be a beast in the East.
Yeah, 6'5", almost 270. He's got the size for sure. You guys feel like this is a reach or a solid selection here, Barrett's choice?
Some people will see it as a reach, but the NFL today on defense, it really is about pass rush. I mean, if you don't get pass rush, you just can't play. And Giants could use some help in that area. I think Parsons would not surprise me here. Joe Judge, the coach of the Giants, was at Parsons' workout, spent a lot of time talking to him afterwards. I think the Giants have big-time interest in Parsons. And, we've talked a lot about how the Eagles haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round in forever. Giants haven't drafted a linebacker in the first round since Carl Banks. So it would not surprise me if Parsons is their guy. But if they're looking for pass rush, Phillips will give them that too.
Yeah, they need pass rush. They clearly need some edge rush. Of the three Miami guys, I think Phillips is going to be the first one to go. So I think he really has like a super high ceiling. I guess there's a little bit of a worry that he won't fulfill his potential. But if he does, you're looking at a guy with, legit in the teens sack every year type of player. And that's what they need. I like that pick for them, Barrett.
Now keep in mind, Parsons will give you pass rush too. I mean, he's not a hand in his dirt defensive end, but I guarantee you, whoever drafts him, the plan is going to be to build him into a package where he's going to be a pass rusher. I mean, he's going to be LeVar Arrington. I mean, he's going to be that kind of player at the next level. So you could draft him with the idea that he's going to bring you the pass rush. Yeah, I think that keep your eye on the Giants with Parsons. I have a feeling that's where he might wind up.
He just kind of strikes me as a Giants type of player. I could see that too, but I could see the Eagles having to deal with him twice a year for the next 6 or 7 years. Certainly.
Yeah, as they did with LeVar Arrington, a great comparison there coming out of linebacker. Rube, you have the golden ticket, my friend. The Eagles traded back. They have the 12th selection, and here you are on the clock. Who did the Eagles pick?
Yeah, and there's to me the pick that makes the most sense here is Caleb Farley. This is a team that drafted Sidney Jones off an injury, a cornerback, 4 years ago, and how he's talked about drafting healthy guys. And Devonta Smith is there. It's got to be tempting for Howie. But I just think if the medicals are okay on Caleb Farley, who was considered by most people the top corner until he had the back issue, until that came up, and Horn and Surtain kind of bypassed him. The Eagles are desperate at cornerback, and they haven't drafted one in the first round since Lito Shepherd in 2002, who ended up being a very good player. They drafted Sheldon the same year. I just think that you can get better value in the draft going corner in the first round and receiver in the second round, because it's a draft with, there's good depth at both positions, but I just think that's the roadmap that the Eagles are going to follow. And I believe if the medicals are okay, and for everything I've seen, the doctors believe that he'll be, he's facing about a 4-month recovery. He'll be okay by the beginning of the year. It's not going to be a chronic back issue with him, but it's a risk. This is a guy with a young guy coming off a serious back injury, and that can be a red flag for a lot of teams. So if the Eagles are comfortable with the medicals, and it's a team that certainly has a lot of experience dealing with injuries, I'm going Caleb Farley, and I think he's got a chance to be the best of that bunch. I understand why he's going to drop, because the question's about his back, but it's a chance for the Eagles they haven't drafted an elite cornerback in 2 decades, and this is their chance to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you. If his reports come back that he's okay, I am so tired of watching Eagles games, and I'm always holding my breath on third and whatever because our cornerbacks have been average because we've been going in average places to get them. We're trying to get guys that were free agents or from other teams' practice squads to be number one players. We need a number one corner on the other side of our other number one corner that we brought in free agency. Big play Slay and Caleb Farley would be a great tandem out there, especially what you said, like you said, with the East, with all the receivers, the three receivers in Dallas, the three receivers now, well, four receivers now that we have to face going into with the Giants. Samuel's, leaving the Panthers and is now with Washington. I mean, this is –
And McLaurin's no slouch either. He's good.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, we have to be able to cover somebody, and I really think that the Eagles picking Farley up would be a great pick. And if he's okay, I mean, he was ranked the number one, just like you said, the number one guy. I could see him being a cornerstone in that defense for a long time.
I like the player. I'm not sure about the value there. The back scares me so much. I like the player. I like what I saw from him a couple years ago. I don't know if I'd take him at 12 there. And honestly, this board, the way it's fallen for the Eagles, I don't think is necessarily ideal because I think on the top, if I'm the Eagles, the guys I'm really looking at are Surtain, Horn, and Jaylen Waddle. And with those three off the board, it gets tougher. In this case, if that's the way things fell on the Eagles, I'd probably go with Devontae Smith. And that's not necessarily ideal, I don't think. I think there are concerns about him too, but he's the best player at a premium position of need if we're taking out linebacker, which I'm doing. I don't know how they're going to value linebacker, but I'd probably go Smith. I understand why you went Farley. I'd probably go Devontae Smith there. But like I said, I don't think this is an ideal way for the board to go before they pick.
I mean, I went into this thinking 1 and 1A are Surtain and Waddle. And I think that's how Howie's looking at it. But that's the risk you take when you go from 6 down to 12. Because now you're thinking they might get out of 12 if you can't land. Because I agree with everything you're saying, and I don't think. The back scares me too. At 12, you're going to get a guy that's got a question mark. You're going to get a guy that's not an ideal prospect. There's something. He's got that upside. He's got that talent. He's got the film, but there's something about him, whether it's his size or his injuries, his experience, level of competition, whatever it is. You're going to find that at 12. You're not going to find it at 6, and that's the position they put themselves in.
Yeah, the tape on Farley is very good. I mean, if you just watch him play. He's very good. The tape is very impressive. He's got size. He's strong. He's played in a couple of different systems. He's aggressive. He's a good tackler. I mean, he's got everything you're looking for. But the back really is scary to me. After the Sidney Jones thing, I just don't know if you can do this. I really don't. I would. I'm with Dave. I mean, I would. The board. We have not done the Eagles any favors here. I mean, in terms of the picks that we've made. But this could very well be the way it plays out. And if it does, then I'm going Devontae Smith here. I really am, because I know that I share some of your concerns about his size. I mean, he is a smallish guy. But I've seen the best defenses in that conference do everything they can to try and stop him that last year, and they couldn't do it. I mean, he has an ability to get off a jam at the line of scrimmage and get open all the time. And he catches everything. And I just think that he's a guy that's going to – you would normally be worried about a guy that size coming into the NFL. But the comparison that's been made with him, and I don't think it's invalid, it is Marvin Harrison. I mean, when I watch him, he really does have his kinds of qualities. Now, I hate to put compare him to a guy that's in the Hall of Fame, but I think the comparison has some validity to it. So right here, it's not an easy choice for most people, but to me, it's fairly easy. The Eagles still desperately need playmakers on offense. They need help on defense for sure, but they still need a playmaker on offense. And I've seen enough of Devontae Smith to think that he can be that guy. So I'm going Devontae Smith here.
I know Jalen Hurts wouldn't have a problem with bringing another Alabama guy in. I'm curious what you think, Ray. I'm really curious if Eagles fans can stomach the Eagles making a selection there of a guy who has an injury history and then waiting until their next pick. But nonetheless, we move on to lucky number 13, and the Chargers in the AFC West are on the clock. Under 500 season for them. What do you think they do here, Ray?
Well, they have a terrific young quarterback. I mean, Herbert's a really good player, and similar to Burrow, they have to start protecting him. And I think they're going to do it right here. They really don't have a guard that, to me, is an NFL quality guard. And I know you don't normally draft guards this high, but I think one of the safest picks in this draft is Alijah Vera-Tucker from Southern Cal. I think he's really good, and he's a plug and play kind of guy who would step right in and probably play there for a good long time. So I'm gonna take Alijah Vera-Tucker from Southern Cal as my pick for the Chargers.
We're talking offensive line, 6'4", 315. Got to come your way, Barrett. What do you think of this kid?
Great pick. We're talking about a guy. You're right, Ray. He'll be there for the next 10 years. Road grader. He's not as nimble as far as his pass blocking, but hey, when you have two guys on either side of you, he'll be just fine. But he's a guy that gives you that nasty attitude, that a unique disposition that he feels as though everybody hates him. So he'll be a guy to go in and want to fight every single play. And you want a guy like that. He's not going to want his quarterback get touched. That's a great pick by them. If they did pull this off, I would go with that. I would go in that direction also.
David, number 14, the Vikings are on the clock. What do you see them doing here?
Yeah, they can go a couple different ways here. They still need some pass rush. I think they could go with a defensive end here, and that would be a fine pick. But I think it's actually a beautiful thing when the best player available kind of lines up with the need, and I think that's what happens here. I'm going Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. They need to protect their quarterback a little bit better in Minnesota, and I just think I'm kind of surprised Slater's here right now. I thought that's where Ray was going to go with the 13th pick. I'm glad he didn't. It made my decision a little easier. I'm going Slater from Northwestern.
Yeah, well, you watch the film on him. He shut down Chase from Ohio State. I mean, the entire game. He just left them out there. They left him out there one-on-one against the best pass rusher, the number one pick in the draft, and he beat him up. So yes, this kid has great talent as far as hand placement. His technique is flawless, and he's one of those guys that you just leave him out there by himself. So I mean that's a good pick also.
Barrett, we are headed your way now with the Patriots pick at number 15. What do you see them doing here?
Well, in all actuality, I didn't think that that Belichick would get his guy and have a quarterback this far down in the draft with the running quarterbacks in the first. I mean, in the top of the first, he gets a gift in his lap. And Trey Lance from North Dakota, arguably, a top 3 quarterback in this draft, he falls down to him. That's exactly what he needed to run any offense that he wants to run. Drop back, he can run a movement type of offense like he had last year with Cam Newton. Trey Lance is a big-time player. He just hasn't had the big-time reps and big-time games that you would want to see from a guy in the first round as a quarterback. But as far as arm talent, his ability to go out there and run, he has the size of a fullback or a linebacker, has a strong arm, probably the second strongest arm in the draft. Trey Lance to the Patriots number 15 is crazy that he dropped that far. But yeah, he gets his quarterback in this draft.
It's a little weird hearing you talk so glowingly about Bill Belichick, Barrett. I got to admit, it's a little odd. Well,
it's odd that we have a player of this impact falling to him, and he didn't have to do anything illegal or cheat to do it. It just dropped to him. I feel as though he cheated or something, But Belichick, he's a good dude. But yeah,
no, we feel you, we feel you.
You have the best in the business. He's the best in the business, and sometimes you get a gift horse, sitting right there for you. So yeah, he's got a gift in Trey Lance.
He hasn't been the best in the business drafting recently, though.
Right. Well, this time he gets it for this one.
Yeah.
Trey Lance throwing a Nelly for the next 10 years in Foxborough. How about that?
Wow.
Ruben, it's great to hear your voice because the Cardinals are on the clock at number 16. What do you see Arizona doing a lot of offense going on there, but do you see them stay on that side of the ball?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously corner is their biggest need. Patrick Peterson's gone. They only have one decent corner. He's a slot corner, Byron Murphy Jr. But with Farley, Horn, and Surtain all off the board, you wonder, Greg Newsome at that point at 16, is that too soon for him? I think he's a very good player, but consensus, not a first half of the first round type guy. So, I think when you look at their other needs, and you look at Devontae Smith on the board, Larry Fitz is probably going to retire. Whatever he does, he's not going to be there. They signed AJ Green, but he's about, 32. Hasn't been the same player the last couple of years when he's been out there. So I think it's really a best player available, either Parsons or Smith at this point. When you're sitting at 16, you have your choice of those two guys. I just think Newsome, it's just a little too soon for him. And they might get out of 16 and get a corner later in the first round and get a pick. But if I'm sitting at 16, it's going to be Smith. I think they'd be surprised that he's sitting there at 16 for him, and I think they would snap him up. Get Kyler Murray another weapon.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be one heck of an offense you got building down there.
Yeah, just sometimes, you kind of just, who's the best guy there? Who's slipping? Who's sliding? Like Slater. I mean, every way I looked at my board, I didn't have Slater going, lasting till 14. So, or Trey Lance lasting to 15. So, I thought Vera-Tucker was a really good, Arizona was a really good spot for him as well till Ray got back at me and him from.
Well, that's definitely what makes this fun, man.
Yeah.
Did you think about Darrisaw there?
I did think he's on my short list, but I just think it's a situation where Smith's just too good to pass up.
Yeah, I think sometimes that happens. I think that Arizona probably strategically going into the draft is thinking we need defense. But sometimes things happen when you're picking at this point in the draft where all of a sudden a player you didn't really expect to be there is there. And you got to think about their coach. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, he's an offensive guy. He wants to build the offense. He wants to throw the ball. He wants to score points. And I think he would be thrilled if Devontae Smith gets to that point. And his attitude will be, look, I'm taking Devontae Smith. We're going to put him in our offense. We got other rounds here. We'll go for some defense later. But I didn't think I was going to have a shot at Devontae Smith. I'm going to take him.
We'll win 38-31 if we have to.
Yep.
Ray, curious if you feel like this is the perfect scenario for Mike Mayock and John Gruden to maybe take Micah Parsons, who Rube just talked about here at 17 with the Raiders selection. What do you see them doing there?
Yeah, that's where they're looking. They're looking defense. And there's no question, if you just look at the tape, Parsons is an impressive player, really impressive player. He has the kind of big play, impact, game-changing kind of talent that people look for. There are a lot of questions about him off the field. There are. I know Mike Mayock is a big character guy. I know that he pays a lot of attention to that stuff. Some people don't. Mayock does. I didn't really expect that Parsons would still be here right now, so that's kind of what I'm thinking of. I think the value is too good to walk away from. I'm gonna send Micah Parsons to Las Vegas. I'm gonna say that I know Gruden desperately wants an impact player for his defense. He was so frustrated with his defense last year. He needs a guy on that side of the ball. It's a game changer. And I really like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. That's actually who I thought I was going to put there. But if Parsons is available, I'm going to send Micah Parsons to the Raiders.
But when did the Raiders start caring about character anyway? Come on, Ray.
Right.
I know that does seem like an oxymoron, doesn't it? But I think that at this point you're looking at the value of the player here, and I think that if Parsons is there, I think he's just too good to walk away from.
Dave, the Dolphins with their second selection in the first round at number 18, where do you see them heading on which side of the ball here?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I kind of lucked out here because I got to pick Jamar Chase for them at 6. And now I get my chance to pick for them again at 18. So, as they're probably watching Parsons fall down, they're probably keeping an eye on that. I would have gone there. So Ray got me again. But I like the idea of edge rush here, and Azeez Ojulari from Georgia is the next best guy on the board. I think there's an outside chance maybe Jaylen Phillips ends up sliding and you can keep him in Miami, but that doesn't happen. So they still get a really good edge player. And if they walk out of this first round with Jamar Chase and a premier edge rusher, I think they'd be pretty happy with it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, he can play in a 3-point stance, and he can rush from outside in the 2-point stance. They really had him, he had the ability to do that freely in Georgia. So he is a guy that can go out there and play. A lot of his sacks he got from one-on-one blocks against running backs and tight ends. But at this level, he's going to have to bulk up a little bit and, understand he's going to have to play against 300-pound guys with great hands that can hold the best of you. So, he has a really good chance of being a guy that, in their system that go from a 2-point stance and a 3-point stance and has production.
So we have a Georgia Bulldog off the board, Barrett. Let's head back to the NFC East. And the Washington football team is on the clock at number 19. What do you see them doing?
Well, I think they want another receiver to go with the tandem they have with Terry McLaurin. And they recently, they want to be in a position where they can push the ball down the field. And I think from Minnesota, Rashad Bateman is a guy that can do that. Even though his 40 time, he's not a blazer. He runs probably around a 4.5, a high 4.5, but he understands how to get open. He's used to going out and catching the ball at a high point. He's a big receiver. He'll be a great possession receiver. He's faster than Alshon, but he has an Alshon type of build and ability. He's quicker than Alshon. He'll be a better Alshon, if he goes out there and gets implemented in the offense in the right way. So I'm going Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota.
6'2", 210. That speaks to the Eagles, getting Caleb as a cornerback to maybe combat some of the offense that the other teams are building up here in the NFC East. But we'll be interested to see if they make that selection and how he will fit into their offense. But we're going to take the 20th selection in your way, Rube, with the Bears. What do you see them doing?
As Buddy used to say, I like Rashad Bateman. I don't like him as much as Barrett. I don't like him as much as they do. But no, I think he does have a chance to be a good player. But he actually –
Andy Dalton could use a receiver, though.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I don't think he appreciated the Alshon comparisons, though. He just texted me. He said, tell Barrett to stop with the Alshon comparisons. Bears, I think the Bears got to go O-line. I think they got to go O-tackle. They've got two very their O-line was bad last year. They got two very average tackles in Leno and Afidi. There's a couple of options there. Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech and Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State are probably at the top of the board at this point for them. I would probably go Darrisaw. They actually the Bears don't even have an O-tackle signed beyond 2021, so it's they almost have to address the offensive line. I'm really intrigued by Jenkins. I wonder if he's got more of an upside, but I think Darrisaw is a good safe bet for them. So we'll go Christian Darrisaw, O-tackle from Vatech.
You go with you look at Darrisaw. He's just a nasty player. So you go with the nastiness of the two. That's one of those picks where he can come and he can lock in and he can be that guy. The kid from Oklahoma State. You look at him, he's just like one of those guys, you just want to run up and give him a hug. But he has some of the best technique I've seen out of an offensive tackle. He finishes plays, great size, great athlete, can block at the second level. Tevin Jenkins, will also be a really good player. But if you want somebody to play right now, Darrisaw is your guy.
And Jenkins, I mean, he's been playing since the middle of his freshman year or early in his freshman year. So he's played a lot of football. He's polished. But yeah, who would you take? You would take Darrisaw over Jenkins there?
Yeah, I would, just because the demeanor, the nastiness of the player. Darrisaw is nasty. He wants to road grade you. Tevin Jenkins is a guy that, his technique, he's a technician. He's fluid. He's an athlete, man. And that's why I like him a lot also.
Barrett likes some nasty dudes.
We soldier on here in the first round, and look who it is. It is the Colts, the home of Carson Wentz, Ray. And they are making a selection. Do you think to help Carson or to help the other side of the ball?
Take a quarterback, Ray.
That's dirty. That's dirty.
I don't think I'm going there. Actually, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the conversation we had right before the break about the offensive linemen, because Indianapolis lost their starting left tackle, Anthony Costanzo, retired at the end of last season. And, they made a pretty significant investment now in Carson Wentz. So you want to make sure you got that left tackle position shoring up. And I agree with the scouting report that Barrett gave on Rashawn Jenkins. Rashawn is the meaner, tougher guy. But Jenkins to me has great footwork and great technique. And to me, I think he projects as a left tackle. I think he's a good pass protector. And I think that's what you're looking for at your left tackle. So I'm going to go with Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State here.
So a run on offensive tackles here. Barrett, you pretty much outlined Tevin Jenkins for us. But I guess, if you're looking at – it's really no bad way to go here, really. I mean –
No question. He's – when I say, even as a rookie, he had great hand placement. But the biggest thing with him, he's a good athlete. He's got the baby face, I used to have the baby face. Now I'm not. But he's got the baby face.
This is where we pop up the old picture of Barrett, like boom. Yeah.
But as far as a baby face assassin, you look at him, he looks like the nicest guy in the world. Like I said, it looks like you want to go hug him. But I tell you what, this kid has shut down some really good pass rushers. And I love his technique. I love how good of an athlete he is. He could, block at the second level very, very well. And they ask him to do that a lot. So I think he's probably the most polished of the two. Darrisaw and him, but Darrisaw just has that nasty streak. But yeah, Jenkins is a guy, he'll be there for a long time. And he's one of those guys that you won't hear his name a lot. But he shut down the guy that, that's probably leading the NFL in sacks. But you won't hear his name, but you also won't hear the defensive end's name he's going against.
Dave, staying in the AFC South, do you see a run on offensive linemen here with what the Titans pick at 22?
No, but I will say if those two guys didn't come off the board right before them, then maybe. I think they were clearly the two best on the board and maybe like overall board, not just talking about offensive linemen, because the Titans could use some offensive line help. But with those two guys gone, it's funny. I'm actually thinking about a guy. I'm not going to take him, but I thought about Christian Barmore from Alabama. That would just make that line pretty dangerous, but I'm not going to go that way. I'm actually going to Greg Newsome from Northwestern. I think this is about the spot for him. He's kind of gone under the radar a little bit. We always talk about those top three corners. I think Newsome's the next guy once you get away from them. And there's a need there too for the Titans. They have they signed Janoris Jenkins, but he's not a spring chicken anymore. They lost to Dory Jackson. They just got Christian Fulton in a recent draft, but I like the addition of Newsome there. I think he'll be a good player, and it fits a need, so I'm going Newsome.
I almost took Newsome with the previous pick. I really did, because Indianapolis could use another corner. Their secondary really faded the second half of last year. And Newsome, I agree with what Dave said, that he was a little under the radar until his pro day. And then he just killed it in his pro day. I mean, he ran a 4.38 40 and did a 40-inch vertical. All of a sudden, he kind of shot up the board. So he's going to go in the first round of the draft for sure, and may even earlier than this. But for him at this point in this first round, yeah, this is really good value. And Tennessee could use help in the secondary. And he's a guy that'll come in and start right away.
Wasn't his father a pro? His father played for Green Bay, also Dallas. Yep.
Yeah, your father had to play in the league to be a cornerback drafted in the first round this year.
Right.
It was one of the rules.
Greg Newsome the second, Patrick Surtain the second. There you go.
Isaiah Jenkins Jr.
Let's stay in the AFC, and the Jets are on the clock at number 23, Barrett. What do you see them doing after they made their splash at the top of the draft?
Well, you got a defensive-minded coach, Robert Saleh, and Joe Douglas. He believes in defense also. So I'm going to go with a guy that not a lot of people are talking about, but this kid is huge. He's 260, 255 pounds, like 6'3", 6'4". And he probably defensive player of the year this year. And that's Zaven Collins, linebacker out of Tulsa. We didn't hear a lot of him because he didn't play in the big games that everybody's seen. But we're talking about a guy that can play just about any position, even defensive line, on this team, and still fast enough and good enough to go out there and cover tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. Collins is one of the, a freakish type of athlete. Was like a tweener before because they didn't know where they were going to put him. They put him at linebacker, and he's become an instant impact with Tulsa. So he's a guy that I like a lot. You're going to remember his name, Zaven Collins. He's going to be in the middle of that defense for Robert Saleh for a long time, and he's going to be a tackling machine for this Jets team.
Competing for that AFC crown will be the Steelers next season. They've moved on from a few players here, Rube, in the offseason, but what do you see them doing at 24 to kind of restock the shelves?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of turnover, especially on the O-line. Marquise Pouncey retired. Filer left as a free agent. They haven't signed Villanueva, who's on the street. Maybe not quite the player he used to be. Former
Eagle. Beat a lot.
Former Eagle. But I don't see anybody O-line at that point that would be a good value pick. I think they're going to go running back. And I've thought that they threw the ball 650 some odd times last year. You got a 39-year-old quarterback. That's just not smart. They got to do something to take some pressure off Roethlisberger. And I think they're going to draft a running back. And the two guys who I'm really intrigued by Travis Etienne, the Clemson running back. The kid, I spent the whole morning watching film of him, and he is something else. But I'm not going to go with him. I think he's maybe too much of a gadget-ish player at that point. But it's been a while since we had Alabama pick, right? It's been a few picks, so I think we're due. I'm going to go Najee Harris. My only concern with him is, he's had like 600 touches in college, and you wonder – about his workload at Alabama. I mean, they have like 90 offensive plays a game. So even though they had a bunch of backs, a bunch of receivers, there's plenty of football to go around. But he's a talented kid. The production's there, size, speed, power, decent receiver. I think he'd be a really good fit in Pittsburgh. Not a lot of running backs go in the first round, but the ones from Alabama that do are usually pretty good, whether it's Sean Alexander, Josh Jacobs, Mark Ingram. We won't talk about Trent Richardson. But he's I'm really curious about Etienne, see how he develops in his career. But I think Harris is more of a solid pick at 24 for Pittsburgh.
Maybe Etienne might go here in the remaining selections we have here. And we're all about continuity here on the Eagle Eye podcast. And that is why, Ray Didinger, you selected the Jaguars' first pick with Trevor Lawrence, and here you are picking for them again at number 25, Ray. What did the Jaguars do here?
Well, first pick was the quarterback, and I think in this pick you want someone who can protect your quarterback. And I've got a couple of offensive tackles here I'm looking at. I kind of have to decide between the two of them. I got Jaylen Mayfield from Michigan, who I like a lot, and Samuel Cosme of Texas, who just had another really good pro day, and his stock is certainly on the rise. I'm going to take Jaylen Mayfield, offensive tackle from Michigan.
And what was the deciding factor for you, Ray?
I just like Michigan offensive linemen. They just seem to be well coached. They seem to come into the NFL and play well, and they seem to play with a lot of attitude. And a lot of the stuff that you said about Darashaw, I felt applied to Mayfield. I mean, he was a guy that was evoking another Michigan guy. He was Runyon-like in that he played to the whistle. I mean, he was a guy that just drove people into the ground. And at 325 pounds, he could do that. And if Jacksonville, they're going to want to build everything around Lawrence, which I understand. He's going to be the guy on the billboards. But for him to be the player you want him to be, you better protect him. And their offensive line last year was poor. And I think they have to start rebuilding in that area. And Mayfield's a guy that probably didn't get as much publicity this year as some of the other offensive linemen because Michigan, in a lot of respects, had a disappointing season. But if you looked at his tape, it was good. So I think he's a guy that's going to come into the NFL, and I think he can start right away. So I'm going to go O-line here for the Jags.
Yeah, he was one of the few things that they were shining lights on that Michigan team. On the offensive side of the ball, he was a highlight. Defensive side of the ball was Kwity Paye. But, Sam Cosmi, the guy you mentioned, I think he's more so going to be a guard in the league as opposed to a tackle. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Mayfield is a bruiser, definitely a bruiser.
Dave, the Browns is the Browns at 26. What do you see the Browns doing at number 26 to improve on what they did last season?
Yeah, they're a fun team right now, and maybe we're all getting fooled, but they're putting together. I mean, they had a pretty good roster last year, and they've continued it. I really like this pick for them because it's a fun pick. You normally say that about a linebacker, but this guy's fun. I'm going Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. He's just a fun player, and I understand that some people view him as a tweener, but that's what the league is now. You need linebackers who can run sideline to sideline, who can cover, and maybe he is kind of a hybrid type player, but I think he would fit really well in that defense, and the value lines up. So that's my pick. I'm going to Owusu-Koramoah there.
Their defense starting to look pretty good when you're adding players like that. Are the Browns, you think, back in the postseason next year?
Yeah, I mean, they should be. I mean, that pass rush has the potential to be really good. Yeah. And now they can have a guy behind them who's speedy enough to clean up some of the mess and also cover backs out of the backfield. And you can use Koramoah in so many different ways. That's why I like him so much. And I guess there's a little bit of a fear that it might not work, but if it works well, then he'll be great.
Barrett, the Ravens historically draft very well. How do you see them continuing that tradition here at 27?
Well, we know Eric Dakota, their GM, cut probably one of the best safeties, the past 5-10 years in Earl Thomas. So I think they go defensively at the safety position and go and get the TCU safety. Trayvon, I think it's Morik. And this guy, he's got great size, great speed for, what he brings to the table. He'll just fit into that defense as a guy that can play in a nickel, like a nickel safety inside the box and play deep safety. So he's one of those combination players that you could play at both sides. And I think he'll be a guy to fit in perfectly in that Ravens defense.
Yeah, they have a thing for defensive players for sure. Safeties at that, a la Ed Reed, not making it seem like he needs to live up to those expectations, but nonetheless, it does fit their MO. Rube, the Saints are on the clock at 28. A lot of good players still available here in the first round. What do you see them doing?
Yeah, you're right. I think we're kind of getting into the best player available when you get into this part of the first round, the last 5-10 picks. I'm really intrigued by Elijah Moore, and I think that's going to be my pick, wide receiver from Ole Miss. Didn't play, only played 8 games last year. Ole Miss only played 8 games. The Saints could really use some explosiveness. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Michael Thomas is really their only weapon. He's been hurt. He was hurt last year. A weapon for whoever the quarterback is. I'll tell you what, ideally, if you're the Saints, I don't think Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill is the answer to the Drew Brees question, but sitting at 28, you're not going to get a quarterback, certainly. So get the best possible weapon for whoever does end up being their quarterback. I would guess it's going to be Jameis Winston. And Elijah Moore is a really interesting player. He's probably a slot ideally, but he's an explosive slot, a vertical slot playmaker. He's my guy at 28.
He's one of my favorite players, Rube. Like just in terms of watching him and how explosive, exciting he is. People think that's a stretch, but I don't think so. I mean, when you have guys like Jaylen Waddle going that early, like we had him going, he's not Jaylen Waddle, but he's just such a playmaker. And watching, I like that we're putting fast guys on turf, by the way. That's my favorite thing. Keep doing that.
I was thinking about that. I mean, and that's like in that Superdome. I mean, that's a fast track down there, and this kid is going to run away from people. He is fun to watch. I would tell anybody, if you haven't seen Elijah Moore, find some Ole Miss tape and watch him play, because he is a fun player.
From the fast track of the Superdome, we go to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. Well, Ray Didinger, you were on the clock for the Green Bay Packers. What do you see the Pack doing?
Well, one of the free agent losses this year was Corey Linsley, who's their center, and I think they're going to go center here. And if I were them, I would. and there are a couple of really good ones. Landon Dickerson from Alabama is a good player. Played center in Alabama, but he's played some guard too. Got hurt in the playoff game, but from what I understand, he should be healed and ready to go. And I think most scouts have him rated the highest, but this is my pick, damn it, and I'm going to pick the guy that I like, and I'm going to take Creed Humphrey from center, a pure center from Oklahoma. And I saw a lot of Oklahoma this year, and this guy's really good. I mean, he just stonewalled the inside, the interior. I mean, whatever teams threw at him, whether they want to loop, stunt, blitz, whatever. I mean, you didn't get past this guy. And he has, for a big man, he's a good athlete. I mean, he can get out on the edge, he can block, he can pull, he can do a lot of the things that are same kind of things that got used to seeing Jason Kelsey do, but in a bigger package. But his strength, his ability to absorb the bull rush and hold the middle is really impressive. And he looks like a guy that takes charge at the line of scrimmage. Awful lot to like there. So I'm going to take Creed Humphrey, center from Oklahoma.
I tell you what, man, I love this guy, man. I mean, he's almost like a little dump truck in the middle of that offense, and he is a road grader. You know what I mean? He takes command when he's out there, but he's still, even though he's big, he's still agile enough that if you want to get him to the second level, he'll get there, and he'll get there with a purpose. But like you said, I mean, I love the way he plays. You know, he doesn't need a double team to get movement. He can do it all by himself. He probably is one of the better centers in this draft I've seen. You know, so yeah, I love that kid also.
Good. Yeah, he's one of my favorite players in the draft. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people really, really like Dickerson, and I can understand it. I mean, he's got the Alabama pedigree, and he played very well. And I don't think the injury is a long-term kind of factor. But honestly, I just watched Humphrey a lot, and I never saw him have a bad snap, much less a bad game. I mean, he's just really consistent. He's really strong, and he just seemed like a take-charge guy at the line of scrimmage, which you kind of have to be at that position. And he just seems to kind of fit the mold of what Green Bay likes in their offensive linemen. So I'm going to send him off to the frozen tundra.
He does kind of seem like a Packer, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yep. I think Aaron Rodgers, you know, when he's not hosting Jeopardy, will enjoy playing behind this guy.
Oh, you had to bring it up.
Hey, from one incredible fan base to another, winding down here in the first round of the draft. Dave, what can you do to make Bills Mafia happy with the 30th pick in the first round?
I like my options here. And I don't know if this will be a popular pick, but I think it's a pretty good one. I know that Travis Etienne is considered to be the next best running back, but I'm going with a different one. I'm going with Javonte Williams from North Carolina. I think he just kind of fits what that offense is a little better. And I just like the idea of them having I don't think they're done at running back. I don't think Zach Moss is the answer. Singletary's not the answer. Get a really good running back to put in that offense, and I think they're going to improve greatly. I could have gone edge rusher here. There are some guys on the board, but I think at this pick, if you're at 30, I feel a little more comfortable taking a running back. So I'm going Javonte Williams from North Carolina. I think it's a good pick. I don't know if Bills fans will like it, but I like it.
He's actually the second best running back in the draft. So, I mean, yeah, ATN was good, but he's, you know, of course he's going to get the hype because he's from Clemson. But, I mean, Williams and the other kid he had in the backfield with him, they were good last year. Very good. Hard to stop.
We're approaching the NFL mountaintop here as we are now in Kansas City with the Chiefs on the clock. Barrett, what are they doing in their war room at the 31st pick?
Well, you know, Big Red, he loves to make sure he has bookends, and both of his bookends were not in the game in the Super Bowl. So I think they're going to go offensive tackle. A guy that he can play offensive tackle and be a guard at 6'7", 310 pounds. He's just agile enough to play on the inside, but he's also on the outside. They said that his arms were a little short, and that's why they say they might move him inside. But I think he can be more than suitable outside at the tackle position. So I'm going to go Sam Cosmi from out of Texas, offensive tackle.
I thought you were about to say Leatherwood, but But go ahead.
Either or. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Sam Cosmi that just, in that Texas offense, he was able to go out there and play against, the premier pass rushers in the Big 12. And I know that's like an oxymoron with it, because they don't play defense in the Big 12. But he was good enough that he showed me a lot from like I said, one-on-one blocking. And like you said, he's one of those leaders that, that Ray talked about, that you can rely on him to get everything back into order on that offensive line. So that's why I like, Sam.
His stock is really on the rise. I mean, he also is a guy that really took advantage of his pro day. He did a 4.8 40, which is really moving for a man his size. Did a 9.9 long jump and did 36 reps on a 225 bar.
Wow.
So he killed it in his pro day. Now he was I had him among my top 10 offensive tackles anyway, but that performance moved him up. So yeah, I was a little surprised that he lasted this long. I don't think he's going to last this long in the actual draft day.
No.
Given his tape and given his pro day, I think he's going to get drafted in the first round for sure. And this is actually a good fit for him because, Andy's definitely got to start rebuilding that offensive line. He lost both of his tackles, and this would be a good start.
Rube, names aplenty still on the board here as we the true road warriors, reigning road warriors of the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, all the way to the chip they went. What do you think they do with the last pick of the first round?
Oh, I was just going to say, as far as Barrett's pick, we know Big Red loves taking linemen in the first. He's probably taken more than anybody else who's ever lived, more first round linemen. Going into this, I figured when you're picking for the Super Bowl champs, you're really going best player available for the most part at 32. But it's actually a guy who I think makes sense for them. It's Kwity Paye. Really interesting guy, had a good pro day. The production wasn't great, in college at Michigan, but he checks all the boxes. It's a guy they could certainly use, not in a hurry to get him on the field, but could probably contribute from the start in some way. I just think he's the best player on the board at this point. The sack numbers were what they were, but there's no reason he can't be a really solid pro. And so I'm going to go Kwity Paye at 32.
They really did him injustice also because they played him on the inside a lot more than they played him on the outside. And he's a smaller guy, so you should play him on the outside, but they ran a lot of stunts with him, which, made him, which factored in a lot why they lined up on the inside. But Kwity Paye, he's a great athlete. He's going to be good in the NFL. Good player.
But, he's versatile, and I think he was kind of a victim of his own versatility.
Yep.
He's 6'4", 270. So, he can – I think he's going to be a guy that plays inside and outside in the NFL. But, so you don't really worry about the sack numbers that much with him. But, he's a talent, and I could see him going down to Tampa there at 32.
I thought you were going to go Asante Samuel Jr. to kind of continue with the theme of the former dads and the cornerbacks thing, but
I just think he's a second. I think it's too high for him. I think there's he's not his dad. Like I would take his dad there, but
he's too old. You wouldn't take him.
He's not that old. It's kind of crazy. We were just covering him. It seems like a few years ago, but I think he could be mid to late. He might even be a third round corner. We'll see. But I want to cover him just because if he's as funny as his dad, it's going to be fun to be around him. But I think Kwity Paye's the guy there.
Well, gentlemen, 32 up, 32 down. Impressions, thoughts, players that slipped, players that surprised you that were higher than you thought. What were your impressions of how this went?
Parsons surprised me a little bit. He kind of, that's going to happen. I was surprised he fell to
the Raiders,
which was number 17 to the Raiders. But there are questions about, off the field questions. So it's certainly fair.
No defensive tackles.
Right.
It's not a good class for them, but I thought Barmore had a shot. I think he does have a shot, but it just
from Alabama.
Yeah.
I was going to take him or Kwity Paye at 32. The other thing that surprised me is if Belichick can get Trey Lance at 15.
Most definitely. Yes.
Somebody ought to do an investigation or something. But that would surprise me if that happened. Are we going to take a few minutes before we start on the second round now?
The highest rated player on my board that made it through without being touched was Greg Rousseau.
Yes.
From Miami.
I was just about to say that.
I had him as my 13th overall player.
Wow.
And we went through the whole first round and he didn't get touched. Now I know there's some questions about him. I know he hadn't played a whole lot. But again, he's a guy that there's some good tape out there on him. I would be very surprised if come Thursday night, a couple weeks from now, if they complete the first round and Greg Rousseau is not picked by somebody. There's an awful lot of talent there. He needs to be coached. He's still raw in a lot of areas. But to me, if you ask me who's the biggest surprise of the guys that made it through untouched, I would probably say Greg Rousseau.
Yeah, I was also surprised Devontae Smith dropped also as far as he did. With him being, he won the Heisman. He won a national championship, and he still dropped that low. So he was a surprise to me.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney not getting taken too, but that kind of shows you the depth at the receiver position. Rube took Elijah Moore, which I don't think is crazy. I mean, Rondale Moore could be there too. Bateman went pretty early, but that's the thing with receiver. We hear about all these names who are first round guys. Well, they're not all going to go in the first round, and that kind of lends itself to what Rube was saying way back when he picked a corner at 12. If you're looking at value, and not that there won't be cornerbacks there at 12, but there's probably more value in corner receiver than there is receiver corner.
Yep. Yeah, he's a gadget guy. I think he's a gadget guy also. So not a pure wide receiver.
Yeah.
I was surprised Barmore didn't go, but those Alabama guys never pan out anyway, right? How many Alabama guys do we pick?
25.
Jones, Smith, Waddle, Surtain, Harris. Was it just 5?
Just 5. Was it just 5?
Anybody take
down from previous years?
Dickerson didn't go, right?
No.
Okay, yeah. Well, they were all in the top 15, so.
Well, in my eyes, you guys nailed it. I think you nailed it. So.
Imagine if the actual draft was exactly like ours. What are the odds?
Had some sort of power over
you guys, you do agree there will be some trades. There's going to be some movement, right?
Right, especially with New England. I mean, they have to. I mean, they can't leave it to chance and having Lance be there. They've got to trade up somehow, some way, and get up there and get them a quarterback. Even though they signed back Cam, it still didn't change the fact that they have to go out and get them a quarterback.
They might end up with Lance, but it's not going to happen at 15.
Right.
Yeah. I'd be really surprised if the Falcons stay at 4. It's possible.
Yeah.
But it would surprise me.
Yeah. And that's the one I think is the most likely. Is I think there's going to be, after the first 3 quarterbacks come off, whoever they are, I think there's going to be a lot of activity at 4 with the teams that need quarterbacks, and there are a lot of them that are going to be looking to move into the 4 spot to get who, if the guy that they really like is still there, that they could very easily trade up with Atlanta. And Atlanta has, look, the idea of taking Pitts is very tempting because he very well may be the best player in the whole draft. He very well could be. But Atlanta's a team that's got a lot of needs, and the opportunity to trade out and make a big haul of draft picks and still get a good pick, a few picks down the road is probably very appealing. I agree with Rube. I think there's a really good chance that there could be a big move right there at number 4.
The interesting thing is that so many of the teams that need quarterbacks are pretty deep. I mean, you have New England at 15, Washington at 19, Bears at 20. If they're going to do something to get up there, you could see something like you saw with the 49ers where they traded up to 3, the Dolphins traded back, but thought, wait, we don't want to be this far back. So you could have multiple trades at once, and it could make for a really fun night.
Yeah, and you know what? We're talking about 4. I mean, there could be somebody could trade into 4 to take Pitts. Sure. That's. I mean, we're all thinking, well, maybe somebody will trade up to take a quarterback there. They might trade up there to 4 to get Pitts. I think he's that good. And there has been, I mean, you never know what the stories that go around before the draft, how much is true and how much isn't. But there's been an awful lot of talk about Jerry Jones loving Kyle Pitts. And wouldn't that play well in Philadelphia? That the Cowboys trade up to take him at number 4 and put him in that offense, a Philly guy, no less. But I think that, That's the pick that I think is going to generate the most conversation is at 4, whether you're coming up to get a quarterback or whether you're coming up to get Pitts. I have a feeling the Atlanta phone's going to be pretty hot Thursday night.
The more quarterbacks taken before the Eagles pick, the better it is for the Eagles and their chances to get Surtain or Waddle.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. We appreciate your time. I learned a lot. Thank you for letting me play a small part in this. It was a lot of fun. This is just a precursor to our special on April 29th of the draft day excitement that will be coming on NBC Sports Philadelphia. So Eagle Eye Podcast, always the place to be for any and all information. Barrett, Ruth, Dave, and Ray, thank you very much.